Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to Future Focus Fridays. A special welcome to our guest speakers, registered guests, civil society organizations, permanent secretaries, and missions, and the United Nations entities. I'm Dale Hernandez, the Interim Chief Executive Officer at Future Focus Empowerment Institute International. Future Focus Empowerment Institute International is a global social enterprise serving approximately 500 young men and women in over 55 countries across sub-Saharan Africa, Asia, North America, Latin America, and the Caribbean. We specialize in youth empowerment strategies, piloting and designing psychoeducational and life skill training programs as we focus on impacting the socioeconomic outcomes of communities, nations, and the entire world, one youth at a time. Now, this talk show is the brainchild of a very special group attached to the organization. They're known as the Future Focus Global Ambassadors Cohort. They're a group of 500 young global impact ambassadors attached to this program, and they serve as country delegates for Future Focus Empowerment Institute International's most highly visible programs. To learn more about the ambassadors cohort, you could visit our website at www.futurefocusemi.org. At this time, we extend our gratitude to those who have made this day possible through their commitment and support for the vision, the organization, and interest in global youth impact and development. So we'll take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. Thank you. So welcome back. And now we wish to inform our viewing audience that you can post all questions in the Zoom chat box and in the comment sections for those of you who are tuning in on Facebook Live and on our YouTube channel. My co-host Rachel Gayamara isn't here today because she, along with some of the other ambassadors, are on a tour and retreat in New York City at the United Nations. We wish them all the best, and I hope they enjoy themselves. Firstly, we'll introduce our guest on today's show. Yolani would be first. The breathtaking reflection of a servant leader, innovator, and serial entrepreneur, Yolani Fletcher is one of the very first Future Focus ambassadors to Tobago, Trinidad and Tobago. Today, she is the Global Head of Marketing and Promotions at Future Focus. She is in her final year at the University of the Southern Caribbean, where she's pursuing a bachelor's degree in business administration with a concentration in marketing. She also serves as the marketing coordinator of Trio Business Group. Notably, Yolani holds the first place title of the business writing competition by the Business Development Unit of the Tobago House of Assembly and is a former graduate of the Shell Live Wire Accelerator Program. Passionate about business, Yolani launched her business known as Caribbean Craves, a well-sought-after dessert bar company with a slogan, "The Taste You Crave." Yolani hopes to encourage other young people within the entrepreneurship field to keep pursuing their passions. Ambassador Yolani, it's always an honor to sit in your presence. So welcome to Future Focus Fridays. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're welcome. Next, we have Ivan. Ivan Mendoza is a marketing and communications professional with over 10 years of experience in a variety of roles, including partner at digital media company, Royalty Club Limited, double gold winner at 2021 Caribbean Advertising Federation ADDE Awards. In the creative world, he is known as Navy, event MC and creator and host of the monthly open mic concert series True Talk No Lie in Trinidad and Tobago, which began in 2013. He now combines his marketing skills and experience with his knowledge of the music industry. Can you hear us, Mr. Mendoza?
Yes, I think my internet just dipped.
Oh, okay, no problem. But welcome to Future Focus Fridays.
Thank you.
Welcome. And finally, we have Ms. Shuana Harinandan. Shuana Harinandan MBA is a young woman who has adopted Mark Twain's quote: "The two most important days in our lives are the day you are born and the day you find out why." As a result of her life experiences and the personal investment of several role models and organizations, Mrs. Harinandan has committed her efforts to empowering and working with young people both locally and internationally. Mrs. Harinandan is an associate at a leading financial institution, the founder and executive director of Youth Amplified Program, a community-based organization that offers vital life skills to young people, as well as an active board member for several other NGOs. Ms. Harinandan, welcome back to Future Focus Fridays. The floor is now yours.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Now, before we begin our dialogue today, we'll take another short commercial break to thank our sponsors. Welcome back. At this time, we will transition into a dialogue, but first we wish to remind our viewing audience again that you can post all questions in the Zoom chat box and in the comment section for those of you who are tuning in on our Facebook Live. So joining me again are three servant leaders and young entrepreneurs who are game changers, who personifies resilience. So quickly, according to the United Nations and research, resilience can be defined as the ability to withstand adversity and to bounce back from difficult events. Being resilient does not mean that life is easier. It means that despite challenges, one can push through and make the most of every situation. In many societies, resilience can be linked to adults and the trauma they overcame to reach adulthood. A map of their success can be shown and a struggle to their achievements. However, many studies have failed to highlight that children and youths are also resilient. And today, they are put in many scenarios where this resilience is tested on a daily basis. Resilience can manifest itself in many ways, and one such method is adapting to life situations. So today we have our three guests on who will discuss how being resilient has impacted them on their life's journey. So first question, what does resilient mean to you personally? And I'll pose the question first to Ms. Shuana.
Once again, thank you so much, Devon, for having me and the Future Focus Friday team. And it's a pleasure to be on the panel with Ambassador Yulani and Mr. Yuvan. So what does resilience mean to me? Resilience actually means the ability to recover, heal, and come back stronger from a prior situation or obstacle that you had to face before.
Thank you so much, Ms. Shuana. What about you, Ivan?
I like to think of resilience as the ability to overcome obstacles, and not necessarily having to recover from being put down, but on your way up, there may be obstacles, and short-term obstacles could be daily obstacles, it could be longer-term obstacles, but that ability to overcome is what I think is my definition of resilience.
All right, thank you so much. To Ambassador Yolani Fletcher, can you share with us one experience which you would say has made you more resilient?
Okay, I think when you have a question, what comes to mind specifically is a business situation. With her business concerned. I remember I was excited to launch actually starting to work with the next company in terms of delivering my items because I didn't have my license as yet, and delivery is important to clients, as well as to find a way for them to access my products easier and to find all the prices without having to message often and call often to make the whole process easier. However, the service was not the service for Caribbean Praise, and it was not the quality that we needed for our clients and for us on the whole. And unfortunately, I had to end the service with the company. And that itself was, I don't want to say depressing, but it was a lot on me. So now I had to figure out ways how to deliver things to people. So that means I had to go and stop car from point A to go to point B. And it was just very hectic. From the situation itself, I decided I can't be down all the time because of this. This is just an obstacle that I need to overcome. As a result, I actually went and got my license, so now I can drive. And eventually, I worked hard and decided to have a website as well. So now persons could come, go on the website, have access to my products, as well as I could personally deliver to them. So it was a challenge, and from brainstorming, looking at it from a different perspective, I actually gained because I have a skill now I can drive, and I also have a website that people can do it. So it actually turned out to help us.
Awesome. I love that, Ambassador. And you have one of the most beautiful websites I've ever seen, by the way.
Thank you.
Yes. What about you, Ivan? Share with us an experience which you would say has made you more resilient.
It'd be difficult to think of one in particular, but there's so many obstacles along the way to accomplishing anything. I would give an example, let's say for True Talk No Lie, actually, when the open mic scene in Trinidad at the time, it was kind of dying, nothing was really happening. So I saw a gap in the market, especially in the area, in the Port of Spain area, that I wanted to kind of capitalize on. But at the time, the open mic scene was something that nobody paid for. It was basically you enter free to a bar or restaurant, and at the end of the night, they'd pass a hat around to, ask for contributions, whatever you can. I decided to start my open mic at that time with an admission fee, which was something totally new. So it was the obstacle in that sense was the mindset of the people, and being accustomed to just entering these things for free. And I wanted to change that mindset to make it something where people paid for the art, in terms of the open mic art. So it was about changing that mindset, through just sticking to what I wanted to do and charge a small cover fee, which then became a bigger cover fee as the event grew over time.
Nice. Thank you so much. Do you care to share anything, Ms. Joanna, on this?
Sure, I'll share one quick situation. I'll revert back to when I started my first year of college. I was very much excited to go, but at the same time, I wasn't mentally prepared for what that experience was going to be like going away from home. So my first semester of college, and this is in all transparency, I think I can laugh about this now, I had a 1.79 GPA. That basically put me on being on academic probation. And I am not a student or a learner who has ever had a GPA like that in my life. I don't think I've ever had anything less than a B, except in math. But that situation really pushed me to see just how hard I could study, how hard I could focus and commit myself, because not only was I on the verge of being kicked out of school, but I was on the verge of basically having my mother's investment go down the drain. I have a West Indian mother, so that conversation did not go over well. Anybody can imagine. We all are from a West Indian background, so you can understand how that conversation went over. So on me as a young adult, that just really pushed me to show just how resilient I could be when it came to my education, how focused I could be. And because of that, I made the adult decision at that point to transfer schools and come back to New York. And that was the best decision I ever made. To finish up my last 3 years of college, I graduated with a 3.5 GPA. I did not fail any classes. I was on top of everything. So even in a situation whereby it was literally on the verge of me losing an investment and jeopardizing my future, I was able to turn that into a positive thing.
Thank you, Ms. Joanna. And also kind of putting your West Indian parent in a position, you know how they could be. We all know that because I think all of us here on the panel have West Indian parents, so we could relate to that. But some people or some young people would think that being resilient is something that you have to be born with, actually. What can you tell young people about resilience? Do you see it being a quality that someone can learn, or is it developed? Or if so, how? Ivan.
This is a tough one. In terms of resilience, I think everybody has it in themselves to be resilient.
Yes.
I think in my experience, understanding what resilience means to me and having examples of myself being resilient is what I think helped me to understand the quality and use it more to my advantage, so that, you know, there are times when you're faced with doubt on any venture, and you're looking for that way out. And to me, one way to get out of that is to look at your past successes and see cases where you are resilient or were resilient. And then that in turn, you know, it's like that proof that you can do it. And it's motivation now to use that resilience, the same resilience that you applied in that past situation, you apply to the situation you're in now. And it's just about figuring your way out. I think adaptability is the main thing, and it's about finding a way. So whenever you're in a situation where you need to get away, it's just, once you ask the right questions, there's always a way. It's just about your will to find that way.
Great, thank you so much. What about you, Ambassador Yolani?
Okay, can you just repeat the question?
Sure. Do you see resilience as being a quality that someone can learn or develop? And if so, how?
Okay, I think it's definitely a quality that someone can develop. Because when you're in a situation and it's very difficult, then and there to make a decision whether this is where you want to be or what you actually envision and where you want to be. And from making that decision, I believe you build resilience because you keep pushing and pushing until you can actually get where you want to be. And one of the things that I can also recommend or suggest is looking at YouTube videos, podcasts, listening to podcasts, and even reading books from persons. You can learn from their experience and how to push through and become more resilient as a person or as a person in general.
Thank you, Ambassador. Ms. Joanna.
So for me, I think resilience is a mixture of both, that you can learn it and develop it. For example, when you go, at the end of the day, we all have to go through unexpected trials and tribulations. That's just something that is, nobody really tells you you have to go through it when you're born, but as life goes on, you realize, okay, there are some hurdles that I have to go over. But at the same time, you develop certain skills based on every situation that you're going through of how you're going to overcome these obstacles. No two situations are the same. So one method that you might have used to gotten over, let's say the death of a family member, which in itself is an obstacle and a trial that we all go through, might not be the same skill or method that you're using to get over, you know, almost being kicked out of school. And on the developing part, I do agree with Ambassador Yolani. I would just take that a step further to say, if we are put in the right environments, in terms of positive environments, we're given the right resources, the right skills, the right role models, people who we can emulate that have been through certain trials and tribulations before, and they're willing to provide those skills and resources, it also helps us to be equipped to better understand how to get over those trials and tribulations that we're going, because everyone goes through a death. everyone goes through a struggle in school. If you choose to go through school, it just might be something different, but you can literally feed off of other people's experiences and the methods that they've used, but it's up to you to choose what works best for you at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. The other question is, how can one's childhood experiences or hardship blossom into something positive? Yvonne.
Interestingly enough, I too am a watcher of YouTube videos, and not necessarily in preparation for this discussion, I was looking at a video by Malcolm Gladwell. It was around the launch of his book, Outliers. I think it was at a Google or Microsoft event. And this topic was more or less part of the discussion of, and one of the themes explored in the book. And he was saying that, everyone can be resilient in terms of being the ability to overcome a struggle, and the skills that you use to get out of a situation are the exact skills that are required to become an entrepreneur. It's the ability to adapt was one of them. I can't remember the exact terms, but all of the things that you do to come out of a bad situation are all of these skills, because at any point along your entrepreneurial journey, there would be obstacles there. From the first thing you do, every task is something that you have to do. It's one step towards the goal. It's one small step at a time, and each one can require some bit of resilience because it may not be as easy as the other. And I agree with the point Shuana made about different types of skills to overcome different situations, but all of those skills combine, I think, to you as an individual now that make you a resilient person. And I think one more thing I'll add is that I think the resilience is a habit more so than something you do once. It's about something that you do consistently in terms of your ability to overcome hurdles. And just quickly before we move on, from another video I was watching, a TED Talk actually, the guy mentioned about people you would bet on. And he said the people you would bet on are the people who complete things, who show their resilience to finish something. It's not about the person who's your friend, and this is a great business tip as well. It's not about the people who are closest to you, who you maybe reach out for emotional support, because those are not necessarily the things that help you to achieve your goals. So the ability to finish tasks is the resilience, and that is, like I said, a key component of being an entrepreneur.
I agree 100%, especially when it's time to do a task and make sure it's completed. And you always like a finisher, always follow a finisher. For example, you don't want to be surrounding yourself with people who doesn't complete anything. Because I know a lot of people who are not finishers. And I could be an example in certain parts of it also. Like I'm not a finisher of one of the degrees that I want to do in psychology yet, but I am going to finish it. So I love the idea when you could emulate or follow an example from somebody who actually finishes something. So I like that. And it does show resilience too. What about you, Shuana? What do you think about that?
Can you just repeat the question?
Sure. How can one's childhood experiences or hardship blossom into something positive?
Okay, sure, no problem. So that's definitely a great question. One of the questions that had me thinking when I first received the questions. And I can revert this question back to when I lost my father. I lost my father at the age of 8, literally less than 2 months after my 8th birthday, just before Christmas. So it's kind of like in that weird middle space. And losing your father at such a young age, and Yvonne, you talk about entrepreneurs. My dad was actually an entrepreneur. And at that time, being an entrepreneur wasn't something that people, the way that we treat it now, it's like, oh my God, I'm so proud of you that you're an entrepreneur, that you came out and you just made the decision to work for yourself. So as I got older, the lessons that I learned from going through a very publicized death of my father, a very traumatic death of my dad as well, those experiences and what I would say traumas that I had to go through as a young child literally molded me along with the help of my mother, because my mother's been there every day, her guidance. So combined with my two parents, as much as my father's been dead for so many years, his entrepreneurial spirit and mindset, along with the skills that my mom has continuously been giving me as I grow in becoming a young woman, literally have developed me into a person that I am right now, that I can sit here today and have a conversation like this. I'm better prepared for what life has to offer me. I'm better prepared for the unexpected things that life also has to offer me because of these lessons that my parents have instilled with me. With being an entrepreneur, the way I remember certain things about the way that my dad went about around business, it wasn't always about who your friend is or who your family is. It was about who could help you get from point A to point B and be that finisher. Who could help you be the finisher, and how could you also help them be a finisher? So all of those things coming out of a traumatic situation like that literally have given me so many positive outcomes in my life and being an entrepreneur as a whole.
Thank you so much. So to you, Ambassador Yolani, what inspired you to become an entrepreneur? I know you're a business owner as well, and I haven't been able to try any of your stuff from your business, although I've been in Tobago. We went out for dinner. We had, I think we met the day before as well, but I've never had the opportunity to have it yet. So what inspired you to become a business owner?
Okay. Okay, I guess everyone probably heard this question growing up, what would you like to do, right? And growing up, I have changed that answer so many times. But the one thing that stuck was that I needed to be in an environment that allowed me to create. And to me, entrepreneurship was the perfect one. So I started studying business since secondary school and then moved on to university. And with entrepreneurship, and specifically marketing, it allows me to touch different segments of the business community, which allows me to create. And because of this is the reason why I went into entrepreneurship. At first, I didn't know exactly what specifically I wanted to do, but from baking at a young age, it just kind of grew on me. I went to different classes and eventually just formed into Caribbean. So that was my inspiration.
I love it. So as soon as we get freedom from the lockdown and so on, I'll taste Caribbean Craze. Okay. What about you, Yvonne? Because I mean, you're in marketing and communications also, and I guess you saw a gap where you needed to put something there, and that's where the open mic came in. But what inspired you to do everything else then?
Good question. I think adaptability. What inspired me to become an entrepreneur in the first place, I think, is just that rebel inside of me that doesn't want to follow anybody else's rules and just kind of wants to do my own thing. So there's a lot of that in it. With that, you have the opportunity now to take that mindset into certain ventures. So, if I wanted to do my own thing in the open mic scene to develop that aspect of Trinidad and Tobago culture and performing arts, then that's just a step that I took with that. In terms of everything else that I do, it's just like following where my heart goes, I guess. I am a very diverse person in terms of my skill set. There's a lot of things that's not even listed on my profile. But it's like there are so many things that I can do. So it's about me putting my, I guess, twist on it, and just following a direction with some kind of plan and purpose to see how it works out. And one thing has kind of led to the next. So, let me start from being a poet. Actually, in New York, I went to school at Monroe College, New Rochelle campus. Actually lived in the Bronx for a while after I graduated in Pelham Bay Park, a couple of stops away from Hunts Point, which I saw in the email. But I was a poet and doing the open mic scene out there. saw things that I wanted to bring back to Trinidad, waited on the opportunity for that. And through doing True Talk No Lie for the last 8 years, I developed a relationship with the artists. And it showed me an opportunity in the market there where a lot of artists didn't know how to represent themselves or didn't have managers. I would need their photos to make the artwork for the event, and they wouldn't have anything, no bios written and that kind of stuff. So it got me kind of working in that aspect as helping them to give them a platform. And now that has propelled me now to become a music manager, artist manager in the music business. So where we provide all those different services to artists who may need. So I'll just say one thing leads to the next. And always there's a lesson in every experience that looking back, you never notice where it would be useful in the moment. But when you do happen to use it years after, and you could look back to see where that connection was made, where that skill was learned. And so in every experience, even if it's a losing experience, and especially if it's a losing experience, I think the lesson that you gain from it is the most important thing, because it's going to come back at some point in the future, and you'll know at that point. The difference is that you didn't know before, but when you get to that point with the knowledge of the lesson before, now you know what to do.
All right, thank you so much, Ivan. I think Shuana went to Monroe College as well, I'm not sure. And our president, Crystal Camejo, she went to Monroe also. So yeah, Shuana, what about you in terms of the inspiration?
So yes, I did go to Monroe College. I did my MBA with a concentration in marketing, which is something all three of us have in common, is that business mindset and that concentration in marketing. So that's amazing to be amongst other marketers. So what really made me want to become an entrepreneur is freedom, honestly. I'm a very structured person in terms of I need to know what my schedule looks like. But I came to a point where I realized that there was a certain amount of freedom that I wanted that I could not get in a 9-to-5 job. Yes, I do work a 9-to-5, but I took it upon myself in the midst of the pandemic to really open my mind and tap into those skills, the innate skills that I have and the learned skills that I've gotten from my tertiary education, and how I could combine those two to really help small business owners, to help the youth, and to just help my community and create a type of impact so that they could have that type of freedom. I wasn't creating the freedom for them, but I was providing the skills and services that they needed in order to create their own freedom. So for me, becoming an entrepreneur was all about freedom, and I would link that to generational wealth. I've seen people in my family not finish school, not go to school because of certain situations. I've seen them work the same jobs day in, day out, multiple jobs. And I'm like, I want to be that change I want to be the change in my family. I want to be that catalyst that shows my cousins and future nieces and nephews that are coming up behind me and my future children that yes, you can work a 9-to-5 job. You don't have to work a 9-to-5 job, but you can create your own freedom using your own innate skills, the life experiences that you have, and even taking inspiration from other people like Yvonne and Yolani and Devon and YouTube videos and TED Talks. Like there's just so much resources out there that honestly, it can inspire anyone to be an entrepreneur. But one thing I will say, entrepreneurship is not for everyone. It sounds great. It sounds glamorous because of social media, because of having conversations in groups like this. It may sound glamorous, but the reality of it, it is not for everyone. If you are not a resilient person and not ready to really tap into all of those skills that you need to overcome those obstacles, it will break you being an entrepreneur.
I agree. Thank you so much, Shuana. And another thing too, I did marketing as well. I don't have an MBA, but I did marketing for a long time. So yeah, one thing that I'm hearing from all of you is freedom, or choosing your own path, or being a rebel, or breaking the molds. And as you just said, being resilient. And it's not for everyone, as you said, and I agree. Clint Calendar said, I do agree resiliency is picking yourself up when you have fallen. It's telling yourself this is just a simple setback, but I will keep striving towards the goal or my goals. Celine Sinclair says your resilience prepares you for whatever life throws at you. You never know how or what happened in the past can affect or impact your journey in the future. And someone also says when Mr. Mendoza mentioned outlier, is it? It brought me back to statistics 101. Many times we look at an outlier as an experimental error or something you can exclude or excluded from the data set, but many times we are outliers in different situations. But when we realize that when we add value, in one way or the other, we start to appreciate who we are and what we do. And Nigel says pressure from an early age can honestly push you to do your best to make your situation better. When you're over pampered, you're less able to strive for achievement since it's mostly handed to you. Okay, cool. So into the next question, and I thank our attendees for those contributions. So next question, what are some challenges that you encountered while preparing to launch your businesses? And how have the current situation impacted your business, which would be COVID-19? And I'll pose the question first to Yolani.
So one of the challenges I had when I got to Caribbean was finance. So apparently I spend a lot, so I don't have the amount of finances needed. And most of this stuff as well I need to order online. So how did I curb that whole finances thing? So Christmas is a time people like to give, right? So instead of asking for perfumes and phones and stuff as Christmas gifts, and especially gift exchange with work, what I ask for is big tools. So I ask for things that I could actually use in my business. So that's what I've kind of curbed the whole finances part and having to actually go out and purchase stuff. I mean, some people look at me like if I was crazy, get why you want a pan. I mean, you could get something else. But it was a vision that I had in mind and something that I wanted. And as such, that is how I started, actually launched eventually my business card. Great. In terms of other challenges and the COVID situation, with the whole finances challenge, what I eventually do as well to separate business from personal, I eventually went and I got a separate business account, bank account, for Caribbean Cruise. So when Caribbean Cruise money comes in, it goes into the account of my personal, when it comes in, to my personal account, as well as to understand where my finances is going. I recently had the company audited, so now I know where to put money and where to manage money is going. With regards to the COVID, however, it was actually it is tough actually because when I have marketed my business, then the cookie cup I would have marketed from a perspective of events. So with the COVID, we have no more events. So I had to kind of flip the whole switch and create it, market it now as celebrate at home. So now when I made cookie cups, I also redesign it. So I put fillings inside it and I can offer this, okay, you can have this at home for your birthdays, you can enjoy this at home. So it's not about just going out to an event and a celebration. So that is how I would have curveball or COVID. And I'm still trying to find little ways and still bypass it, but it has gotten a lot better. But those were my challenges. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much, Ambassador. What about you, Ivan, in your field? What are some of the challenges?
Well, I would say COVID in itself was a challenge for me because it shifted me out of my stable job into an unstable job, into freelancing, and it really made me have to focus my attention on what I really wanted to do. So in the early stages, there was a lot of brainstorming, a lot of trying to figure out what next for many of the different things that I do. Coming out of that with some opportunities. You know, now I do my own business in terms of freelancing for social media and stuff for clients. I started doing graphic design. I started looking at a lot of different things and just developing my skill sets along the way. And that led me to launching a couple of businesses. So I actually relaunched my t-shirt line. That happened last year. Last year as well was when the entertainment management thing started as well. So that period of being, being down and out of the comfort zone is one of that thing that does inspire resilience, because it forces you to figure out, what's next and what's the next move, because you're not going to settle. And some people do settle in their situations. But if you don't want to settle, you have to find a way. And it means researching, it means reading, it means, just finding whatever it means to you that you want to achieve. And that for me was, like I said, the t-shirt business, the entertainment management, and a couple of things actually that I can't even speak of right now, but it's coming really soon.
It's good to hear that. What about you? Say that again?
I said it's for True Talk No Lie. That's as much as I can say.
Oh, okay. True Talk No Lie. All right, no problem. So we'll check that out for sure. What about you, Shuana?
So for me, one of the challenges that I faced, well, first of all, I started my business in the middle of the pandemic. That's where my brainchild came from, was in the middle of the pandemic to start. I'll just talk about my nonprofit. I do have a nonprofit by the name of Youth Amplified Program. It's a life skills program where we offer young people between ages 14 to 18 4 vital life skills that they would need, which is home economics, mind, body, and soul awareness, financial literacy, and job readiness skills. Now, with that, it's one of the first issues that I faced was, I guess, the formation of the organization. With everything having been closed as a result of the pandemic, filing paperwork was the bane of my existence, is what I would tell you. It literally would take like 6 weeks just to get one paper approved, and then they would come back with something else and you'd have to wait another 2 months because everything was backlogged. There was no staff in-house, so you couldn't call anyone on the phone, and even if you did, you were talking to an automated machine. Everything was online, and online wasn't really giving you that person-to-person contact that you would need to really get things fast-tracked. So that was one of the most frustrating things for me. And then another thing was having to revamp my launch plan. My initial plan was to have the program be in person. I was already having conversations with principals and assistant principals for schools. And then 2 days after my first conversation with an assistant principal at a school that was more than ready to have my program within their building, the city and the governor basically said, well, everything is shut down. Everything is now virtual. And to try to implement a program like mine, along with students and teachers and everyone just trying to understand this online learning platform, which in itself was chaos for everyone who had to do it, that just didn't make sense. So my launch plan was actually pushed back an entire year. So now that everything is dying down in terms because of the vaccine, and I guess things are, I wouldn't say normal, but they're somewhat stable now. My program will be launched in September. So that's where I'm gearing to right now. So all those challenges are basically leading up to my launch, which I'm very excited about. So challenges and just how you're able to overcome them really shows how resilient you are. And look how many positive things are coming. Caribbean Craze is more than thriving. I see Yolani all the time on Facebook and Instagram. I wish I could eat her food, but I live in America, so I can't even try it. Yvonne, I wish I was in Trinidad. I love the music industry in Trinidad. Wish I could be there to experience what you're experiencing. So I just love the fact that we all were able to overcome those challenges that the pandemic presented us with. And so many positive things have come out and will come out of it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Shuana. And as you said, like working online is totally different because I've been working online for close to 2 years now. It's going in 2 years. And we've been on meetings for like, listen, I've never been in a meeting as much as in the pandemic. I think we had meetings like for every day, 3, 4, 5 times on Zoom. And it's sometimes late at night. I remember having a meeting at 4 a.m. because Africa was 10 a.m. And I remember putting my alarm for 3:30, and I was like, gosh, I have to wake up at 4 o'clock. But it's all for the youths, and that's what we're working with. I'm grateful for Future Focus. For all the youths in Africa who put in the work, we have to put in the work to help also. So I'm grateful. Even though I have to wake up at 4 a.m., I am grateful to be a part of that through the pandemic also. So there is, I guess, the amount of, I guess, being resilient, even though we in a pandemic and a time where we never thought we probably would be living in. I never, in my life, I know that for sure. I never thought that I would be wearing a mask every day. I mean, I see it in movies, but never in my lifetime I thought we would be going through something like this. But we're resilient people, and I could see things slowly but surely would be getting back to a form of normalcy, a place where we could probably appreciate a little much more and get the things done that we really want to get done. So talking about young people and youths in particularly, another question is how can one, what non-traditional ways can we instill resilience in children? And I'm not sure, well, I'm sure some of you don't have children on here, but it could be, as Shuana said, your niece, your nephew, a cousin, any youth that you work with. How could you instill in them these non-traditional ways of being resilient? And I'll first pose the question to Yvonne.
Okay, so one of the things, my actual last job was working with the Scout Association of Trinidad and Tobago. So I do work with youth. And in my experience working with youth, I think one of the things, there's an issue about helicopter parenting. I'm not sure if you'll know the term. And I've seen it in person. And one of the things the former National Scout Commissioner used to say a lot to the parents especially was that many times we try so hard to give our children the things they didn't have that we forget to give them the things that we did have. And those things were the ability to learn from your own mistakes and experience things on your own, because that way is how you get to learn a certain way, because your curiosity leads you to touching something. That's how you learn what it feels like. And that's a very baby example, but as you get older, there are always things that you have opportunities to learn from, and sometimes we try to protect too much. And so doing that encourages your ability to learn is again the key part of resilience, because it teaches you now how to overcome that small obstacle. And like I said, it's maybe something you don't realize you're learning when you're learning it. But looking back, you could probably see a lot of experiences that taught you something that you apply to your future lives.
I like that. Thank you so much. What about you, Shuana? Especially with working with the Youth Amplified, with your program, or the program you want to get on board.
So yes, how I would approach teaching our children in the non-traditional way of instilling resilience in them, I would break it down to 5 words or 5 skills. I had to write them down so I didn't forget.
Sure.
The first one is teaching them self-awareness. They need to understand who they are as a person, as an individual, that being an individual, everybody else is taken. So just be yourself. The next thing is mindfulness. They need to be mindful of their environment, mindful of the way that other people think, basically being open-minded. Self-care. Self-care is very important. Self-care could be something as simple as watching YouTube videos because they bring a certain comfort or joy to you. Sleeping is a form of self-care, and some of us don't even sleep enough. The next thing is positive relationships. A lot of times our children and just us as individuals, we come from very negative families. We're in negative work or toxic work environments, toxic romantic relationships. We want to teach our children what a positive relationship looks like, what a healthy relationship looks like, and not just with another man or another woman, but with a parent and child relationship, a colleague relationship, a panelist relationship like this, because all four of us, we respect each other, and we've never even met each other in person. And there's a level of respect that we have for each other. And the last thing is purpose, which is probably the biggest thing for me. One thing that I always feel comfortable and I take pride in sharing is people understanding what their purpose is, especially children. They don't need to know how to like walk in that purpose or anything like that at such a tender age, although there are some children who are very amazing and, you know, a dime a dozen. They're literally that gem. And we have hundreds of them in Future Focus, but there are ones that definitely stick out to us. But they should at least understand that there's a bigger picture, there's a bigger goal out there, that there's a design plan for them. And as parents or educators, teachers, youth ambassadors, entrepreneurs, we need to provide them those skills to set them on the path in order to find their purpose. So in terms of those non-traditional skills that we can give and provide children to instill resilience in them, I literally would just break it down to those 5 words.
Thank you so much, Joanna. And I love the 5 points. And for mine, as my go-to, like you shared, your last one was yours. For me, I like self-care, because not that I like to take care of myself, I just think it's more important. It is important, sorry. And I like to do that. You mentioned home economics also in your pillars for your NGO. And I think that was very important, or is important, because in my high school, I had no home economics. Not that I even know how to cook in the first place, but I think I would have learned if we had it in my school. I think they thought we would burn the school down. I don't know what it was, but we didn't have it, but other high schools did. And I'm not sure if they have it in schools now, but I highly doubt that. But this is a really, really good pillar to have for youths to learn. You wanted to say?
I'll just make a quick comment about that. So I didn't even have home economics. It's not something that's offered here in America either. But with home economics, my mother was actually a home economics teacher in Guyana and when I lived in Africa. So home economics, most people think it's just about the food and nutrition part, but there's so many other parts to home economics. There's clothing and textile. There's actually family planning, and that family planning can include anything from a birthing plan to your financial plan as a family. And people don't really understand that home economics is so much more than just learning how to boil water or learning how to boil rice. It's just so much more. And I really saw the importance and need for it here in America. Not saying that I can cook or I could use a needle and thread or anything like that. Trust me, I can't, although my mother was a home economics teacher. But I really understood the value of it. And I really saw how much it was needed, especially not just here in America, but in the Caribbean, because in Guyana, kids still have to take home economics for CXC. So I don't even know if it's still called CXC at this point, but that's what I last knew it as. They still have to take home economics. I think it's such a fun thing to do. And we see home economics being presented in so many different ways here. Like, for example, a dietitian. That's actually a career that you can get out of home economics, and people don't know that because no one has ever taught children the word or the subject home economics before. So that's why I included it as a pillar to my organization.
I love that. Thank you so much. And to the rest of panelists, let me ask you quickly, what advice would you give to youths who have a desire to start their own businesses? And I'll ask Yolani first, Ambassador Yolani. If you had to give a young person like at least 1 or 2 advice, what would you tell them?
I would tell them just start. But I think one of the important things with start is that you need to remember that once you start because it's something that you want, and you will face obstacles. You will face obstacles, but you need to make up your mind that this is what I want, and you just keep pushing forward until you become a success.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. What about you, Ivan? If you had to give those advice, what would you give?
I like that one. In business and launching, there's a term called the MVP, the minimal viable product, which I think is an important concept in general in how to approach things in life, that you start with what you have, to piggyback on what Yulani said. What I would add to that is never stop learning, and be excited about learning. So find that thing that learning about it makes you excited, because that's often a great teller of where you'll end up. Like I gave my journey. I never knew 10 years ago I would end up being an entertainment manager or any of the things that I did, but there were many experiences along the way that helped me to become who I am now. And I'll give a quick story. So we're talking about obstacles, and I just remembered the other day I had an extremely swollen finger. So my right hand, which is my dominant hand, this finger couldn't move. It still hasn't recovered fully, but it's my dominant hand, and I couldn't really use it for a while. I had to go get antibiotics to take down the swelling, and I was advised to rest it for 2 weeks. And that came from teaching myself graphic design and probably using bad form on my laptop. It made me know that I need to get a mouse now, which I have ordered. But the thing about it is that I had began teaching myself how to use my left hand just in various ways. And I was actually thinking back about it. It was a football coach of mine from secondary school who always emphasized the importance of being able to play with 2 feet. And when he explained that, I thought, you know what, why not teach myself to use my left hand as well? Because you never know when you might use it. So I would do simple tasks like eating and brushing my teeth, or anything that requires some level of dexterity with your left hand. Just to train it, I would pick up things instead of using my right hand, my left hand. Even in football, my left foot, I think I had a better shot on it. But fast forward to how many years later, here I am with a swollen finger and having to use my left hand to do the daily task of life. And, it's just little things like that. You could look back and realize that there was a lesson there somewhere. And, it helped me in a future situation. So you never stop learning. You just always be open to something, because you never know where you would be able to apply that to in the future.
That's right. I hope you did get to rest your hands for 2 weeks, though. Clint Kalinda says, memory lane. Thank you for this episode. It comes back to the point that was shared. There's a lesson in every experience. Thank you, Clint. And to Ms. Shuana, what advice would you give?
So there's just 2 that I've learned from my own personal experience. The first one is be open-minded. It just goes back to always be willing to learn, because there's always a better way of doing things, especially in business. A more efficient way at that is what I would say. And the last thing is, don't be afraid to cry, scream, and vent. But after you're done doing all of that, snap out of it and get back to doing what you need to do.
I love that. Thank you so much. So one more question, and this is the last question before we close off today's show. There are 4 types of resilience: mental, emotional, physical, and social. Resilience is made up of these 5 pillars: self-awareness, mindfulness, self-care, positive relationships, and purpose. And Shuana shared that earlier on as well. So what is your go-to pillar when speaking about resilience? Because there's a lot. There's the 5, but there's one I'm sure we all could say, well, this is my go-to. And again, I would repeat that. It's self-awareness, mindfulness, self-care, positive relationships, and purpose. And for me, it was self-care, as I explained earlier on, because I think when you take care of yourself, you are better well-equipped to do anything else. So what would be your go-to, Ivan?
Can you give me the list one more time?
Yeah, sure, no problem. So it's self-awareness, mindfulness, self-care, positive relationships, and purpose.
I would say a combination of self-care, mindfulness, actually all of the above.
Just combine together.
Yeah, so I'm a very social person, so I tend to feed off people's energies. So I would try to sometimes, one of the struggles I've had being on lockdown is being, stuck in your homes for the most part. And I miss that social interaction with people. So Sometimes, like one of the things I did was to go volunteer with the Scouts for
Right.
vaccine drive, and just being out amongst people, give me a renewed sense of, energy, and even that in it was some sense of purpose as well. But I think purpose is the main thing, and following figuring where you want to go, because one of the challenges I've been having is even figuring it out, because one of the lessons I would say is you never know everything, and you're always figuring stuff out. Like, I'm no expert in any of the things that I do, but well, not an expert, but there are always things that I can learn in the things that I could do to, like Shuana said, to get better. So yeah, I would just say, keep at it. Figure that thing out. Follow where your heart goes. There's usually some purpose there. There's a reason it's just pointing you in that direction.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Ivan. And definitely a combination of those are really viable. What would you say, Ambassador Yolani Fletcher, out of self-awareness, mindfulness, self-care, positive relationships, and purpose? Which would be your go-to?
One or
You could combine them if you want, like Ivan, but yeah.
okay, for me to be self-awareness, self-care, and positive relationships. I said this because I like the idea of creating and achieving, but I also need to learn to find the balance of pausing and actually taking care of myself, because it actually becomes a lot when I don't pause. So definitely that's where the self-care comes in, as well as having positive people around you. That environment helps you to grow more, and those would definitely be my top three foods.
Thank you so much, Ambassador. And finally, Ms. Shuana.
So for me, as much as I believe in finding your purpose and understanding your purpose, the one, I don't remember what the word is that you used, but the one trait that I would put a lot of importance on is self-care. So for me, I've been working at home for almost 2 years now, and for the rest of the foreseeable future, I'll be at home working. But I traveled a lot before the pandemic, and not being able to travel, I would say it put me into like a minor depression, because I was so used to, okay, every 3 months I was out. I went to somebody else's country, had the time of my life for a week. I came back rejuvenated, with a different mindset, with a different type of energy to get the work and the projects that I need to get done. But having to be in the house all the time with nowhere to go, I found myself watching all my old pictures and videos, and self-care, because I experienced burnout in the middle of the pandemic as well. And I'm the type of person, my body literally shuts down if I am too stressed out, if I'm overwhelmed or anything like that. So self-care is very, very important. Do not jeopardize your self-care for anybody. Something as simple, like I said, as sleeping, as eating healthy, going for a walk, getting your nails done, getting a haircut, taking a vacation. Take it, and do not be afraid to tell people, no, I can't do something because I'm taking a self-care day or a self-care hour or anything like that.
Most definitely. Thank you so much, Shuana. And yeah, a haircut does the trick sometimes, for sure. A new one. I could talk to you guys all night, but we don't have all night, unfortunately. But as we close off today's conversation, here are 10 tips to build resilience. So first, number one, believe in yourself, challenge negative thoughts, forgive yourself and enjoy life. And it says the joy is in the journey, not the destination. Learn from difficult situations, build positive relationships. Don't be afraid to take risks, develop a strong social network, master your emotions before they manage you. Celebrate the small wins with an attitude of gratitude, which is my favorite. And always be prepared. So with all of these tips, especially for me, celebrating small wins is very important, because it not only tells you how grateful you should be, but it just gives you a sense of celebrating you in any achievement possible, whether it's a small one or a great one. So today's discussion was indeed very informative, compelling, and insightful. As I said, I could talk to you guys for the rest of the night, but Time. We now have a lot to consider and to take with us as we navigate our everyday lives. We thank you for engaging and for sharing with us your ways in which our youth can maintain resilience in spite of challenges they may encounter. Ambassador Yolani, Mr. Ivan, and Miss Shuana, we thank you for your work in engaging this progressive dialogue. I believe our viewing audience was empowered and more informed of ways to meet the challenges we face and have been inspired to build resiliency. We thank you for your contributions to breaking barriers and cultivating culture of education, awareness, and change in the youth space. So we take a short commercial break and we'll be right back. So welcome back. And once again, we wish to acknowledge our sponsors, Rital Incorporated, Treats by PYT, Healthy Kinder International LLC, Global Food Warriors, Youth Amplified Program, Business Aesthetics, Women of Substance, Crib and Craze, and Rapture Streetwear. We thank you for your continued support and contributions. We also extend a warm thank you to the management and staff at Future Focus Empowerment Institute International for all their hard work and dedication towards the success of this show. To our listening and viewing audience on all of our social media platforms, we say thank you for tuning in. This brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you for joining us, and be sure to register and tune in to next week's episode of Future Focus Fridays as we engage in more thought-provoking conversations and as we continue a special segment for navigating life as a youth in the pandemic. For questions and to those of you who are interested in being a sponsor and advertising on the show, you can email us at info@futurefocusemi.org or call us at 347-299-6652 for more information. Note, Future Focus Empowerment Institute International is a registered 501c3 tax-exempt NGO, and all monetary donations are tax deductible. Once again, thank you for joining us, and see you next week. Bye.